What's going on, everybody? I'm your host, Ben Balian, back with another episode of the Sports Pod, and in today's episode, I'm going to get into some New York baseball. What a week it's been for both clubs that play in the city, starting with the Metropolitans, Luis Robert Jr. and Bo Bichette, two fantastic ads for David Stearns, and for the Yankees, Bellinger is back in pinstripes. Belly and Boris came down so much from their initial ask, and it was enough for Brian Cashman to agree to terms on a 5-year contract. I'll get into all of it on the other side of the intro. Hit it.
DiVincenzo a three. Bang! Bang! Got the wall. He jumps. It's gone. He did it. He did it. Pete Alonso with the most memorable home run of his career.
All right, getting into the episode and starting with the Mets, I'll begin with the Bo Bichette contract because it happened first. Honestly, my favorite part of this deal is that the Mets stole Bichette from the grasp of the Philadelphia Phillies. It seemed like Bo was about to agree to a 7-year deal with Philly, but Steve Cohen said, no. Come down the turnpike and play in Queens. I love it. I mean, the two biggest areas of need in terms of offense for the Mets were hitting with runners in scoring position and guys who could hit for average. In my opinion, those were the two biggest deficiencies in the Mets lineup last year, and Bo Bichette provides both of them. I think he led the league with hits with runners in scoring position, and he hit .311 last year. You can't deny that. I mean, $42.5 million is a lot per year, by the way. 3 years, opt-outs after both the first and second years, no trade clause for Bichette. It's a lot of money. 42 a year seems like a ton, but it's honestly the going rate at this point. You look at what Kyle Tucker got, $60 million. I think that's ridiculous, and I'll probably have some thoughts on the Dodgers that I sprinkle in throughout this episode, and after I get through the Mets and Yankees. But $42 million for Bichette, he's making more than Aaron Judge. He's making more than so many top guys in Major League Baseball. Aaron Judge is the one that sticks out to me most because he's a multiple-time MVP winner. He's carrying the Yankees, the team on the other side of town, so the markets are similar that you would be comparing him to. It's not that crazy in this day and age, though. I mean, it's 2026. The MLB is most definitely heading towards a lockout, and $42.5 million, a lot of guys are getting that now. It's not that crazy. It just seems like so much money compared to where we were just a couple years ago. The thing I'm most worried about with Bichette is the defense, both Bichette's defense at third base, because I'm not sure how his arm strength is going to be. To me, he never stood out as a guy with extraordinary arm strength. If I pull up his baseball savant page, I don't think he has that tremendous of defense. But the other thing is, it creates such a big logjam on the infield. His arm strength, now I have the savant page up. He's in the 36th percentile with 82.3, and his outs above average is -13, which is in the first percentile. In other words, the opposite of where you want him to be, and that's at his primary position of shortstop. Now, the Mets are going to shift him to third base, where I can only imagine it's going to get harder for him, especially throwing the ball across the diamond, especially considering that the Mets are going to have a guy in Jorge Polanco who doesn't have a ton of first base experience throughout his career, manning first base. I'm worried about that. I am worried about the Mets defense. So let's go through the lineup right now. First base, like I just mentioned, it's gonna be Jorge Polanco for the most part. I would assume Mark Vientos is gonna make a start here and a start there. But for the most part, day in, day out, it's gonna be Jorge Polanco, who in his career doesn't have a ton of experience at first base. But he's a veteran. He's a plus defender wherever he plays, so I'm willing to trust the process and see what Polanco can do, because the other option is Mark Vientos, which I do not want to get into. But short long story short, Vientos is not a good first baseman. The defense, the picks, none of it is good, which this is one of the reasons the Mets should have been more aggressive in trying to retain Pete Alonso, because even though we didn't get credit for it, he was a plus defender over first base. He came in as a rookie, very raw, and with not a bunch of talent defensively. But last year, he was a plus defender. He was someone you could trust over there at first base. And that's such an underrated part of baseball. I don't know if it's underrated, but it's a part of baseball no one talks about enough. First base defense, because you need those scoops. You need those picks. You need to dig the balls out of the ground. I don't know if the Mets are going to have it in Polanco. I'm confident that he'll be able to adjust because he is a veteran and he's always been a pretty good defender. But I'm not certain. And I would like to be certain with this team right now, especially when you have all the resources in the world with Steve Cohen, especially when you could have brought a guy back, a guy who probably wanted to be back in Pete Alonso, who is a really good defender. So first base is a little bit concerning to me. Second base, you're going to have Semien. I'm not worried about it. His defense is really solid. He's probably threatening Gold Glove level. He's going to be on the field every day. You don't have to worry about that. He'll also hit probably 5th or 6th. Middle of the lineup, he's a guy that the Mets really need to hit well this year. He can hit for average. He does have some pop. But overall, he's going to be more of a defender than anything. At shortstop, it's Lindor. That's your captain. You need that guy to have his MVP-type seasons. You need Lindor to carry the offense. I mean, Juan Soto is really nice, and I'm pretty confident that Juan Soto is going to give you Juan Soto-level production this year. But Francisco Lindor is a bit of a wild card. Sometimes you get the really good Lindor, and sometimes you get the lackluster Lindor where you're not too happy with his performance. But overall, I know his defense took a step back last year, but defensively, he's typically really good. Then transitioning to third base, I've talked about it a good amount already, but it's going to be Bichette. Again, I'm concerned. I don't know if he's going to have the arm strength. He's already not a very good defender. Transitioning to a new position, that's a little concerning to me. Behind the plate, it's going to be Francisco Alvarez. And Alvarez is a guy that's interesting to me because if he can stay on the field and he can stay consistent, I think he's the X factor of this lineup. He's going to be hitting middle to bottom, and last year he had a down year. But if he can bounce back and hit homers and hit for average, spray the ball into the gaps, and not hit ground balls like Endy Chavez seemed to be telling him to do last year, I think the Mets lineup immediately gains so much length because rookie year Alvarez and 2024 Francisco Alvarez, if the Mets can get that guy, they are going to be sitting pretty. And then to the outfield, left field, right now I'm thinking it's going to be Brett Baty. It seems like the Mets are considering shifting him out there, which that's a normal shift, going from third base to left field, especially so young in his career. Baty's always been a solid defender, so I think he can do it at least in a stopgap role because eventually Carson Bench is going to be coming up, and that's really the long-term option for left field. Carson Bench is the guy, and some people think he might break the team out of camp. I'm not certain on that, so for now, I'm going to put Baty with a question mark, and maybe it will be Carson Bench not too long into the season. Then in center field, and this is a guy I want to get into a lot right now, Luis Robert Jr., the newest acquisition, the newest New York Met. All it took was Luis Angel Acuna and Truman Pauly. I put out a video speaking on Robert on my Instagram. You could go check that out at thesportspod_Ben. It'll be linked down in the description below. The account, at least, you're going to have to find the video on your own, but it shouldn't take too long. For Robert, he slots in so perfectly to center field. Tyrone Taylor had been manning center field, and he did a really nice job with that. He was always a really good defender, but his bat got a little lackluster at times. He had his streaks, he showed his flashes, but overall, Luis Robert Jr. is a guy who's been in an All-Star game before, a guy who's hit for power, who's hit for average, and he's going to anchor the bottom third, bottom 4 guys of that Mets lineup. He's probably past his best years. He's probably past his prime. That's not saying he can't give you anything, though. I feel like I've been hearing about Lou Bob for so long at this point that I'm kind of relieved it finally happened, because I'm excited to see what he can do. Like I said, he's a really good defender. He can hit the ball, and honestly, he's here more for his hitting. His defense is a nice bonus, but right now the Mets are really committing to building their lineup out and to building their offense. That's what they want to do this year. They want to score a lot more runs. Stearns is saying, listen, our pitching is either going to be really good or really bad. And this is something I'll get into here in a couple minutes, but the pitching is going to be all young guys plus Kodai Senga and Sean Manaea. So it's not certain. It's a lot of wild cards as far as the rotation and the bullpen goes. Then to right field, it's Juan Soto. Obviously, that's the guy. Yeah, you know what you're getting from him. He's going to be an MVP caliber player, and he is going to be the best hitter in your lineup. Now getting to some of the stuff with the rotation, and then I'll circle back around because I do want to talk about the Lou Bob trade in a little bit more detail. But your rotation, in my eyes right now, it's opening day. It'll be Sean Manaea, Kodai Senga, Nolan McLean, Jonah Tong, Brandon Sproat. Am I forgetting someone? No, I don't think so. And then at some point in the year, I'm not sure what the timeline on him is, but Christian Scott will be returning from injury. I'm seeing right now, after rapid minor league ascent, he had Tommy John in late 2024. He'll target a 2026 return. So it's not giving me really specifically when he'll be back. He's likely to start in the minors or a depth role. I don't know about that. I think Scott is a guy who can be really good, because if you remember, and like I said, no one is talking about this, but when Scott came up in 2024, he made his first start against the Rays, and he just dominated for a couple weeks. He was drawing the Matt Harvey, the Steven Matz comparisons, and I love that. The Mets pitching is turning back into what those 2015-16 rotations were, with a young Noah Syndergaard, with a young Jacob deGrom, a young Steven Matz, a young Matt Harvey. What was it? It was the 5 aces year. I feel like I'm forgetting a name from those teams, but that was too far back. I was barely conscious at that point. I love that the Mets are turning back into that, where they got all these young guys who are throwing gas, who are getting outs, who are really producing at the major league level as soon as they're called up. Personally, I think Jonah Tong needs a little bit more time to develop. He just seemed a little bit razzled, a little bit fragile in the games where he maybe didn't perform to his expectations. And I'm not mad at it. The kid's 20, 21 years old, so you can't get on him too much. He had a rapid ascent through the minor leagues. I feel like these are other guys that I've been hearing about for a while, so I'm happy that they're finally coming to fruition and panning out at the major league level. Now, the biggest issue for the Mets rotation this year is going to be the bullpen. You brought in Devin Williams to be your closer. You brought in Luke Weaver to be maybe your setup, maybe a 5th, 6th inning guy. But the elephant in the room is losing Edwin Diaz. And it sucks. The only reason I can think of for why the Mets didn't want to sign Diaz is that he's getting older and you didn't want to tie up that kind of money and an aging reliever. Listen, though, Edwin Diaz is probably the best closer in all of the MLB. He is lights out. He's got the crowd behind him. Narco, the intro music, the trumpets. It's a whole show when Diaz comes in. I watched Devin Williams play in New York. We had a first-hand look. He was awful. I would have loved to bring Edwin Diaz back, and I know what happened a month ago at this point, so it's old news to be talking about, but it's still frustrating because now we're about 30 days away from pitchers and catchers reporting, and the Mets bullpen is looking super, super skimpy. I am not happy with what I've seen because Ryan Stanek is out. I mean, other than that, what is the Mets bullpen looking like? It just doesn't look good right now. I'm pulling up the roster. Let's go. All right, here are the pitchers. Wasker Brazaban, are you confident in that? Not really. Alex Carrillo won't pitch. Cooper Criswell won't pitch. Luis Garcia was brought in today. Maybe he was a Dodger, but he's 38 years old, so I don't know what you're going to get from him. Reed Garrett, he's had his moments. He's had extended periods of time where he's lights out, but he's also had moments where he sucks and he can't get an out. Joey Gerber probably won't pitch. Hagenman is your cleanup guy. Richard Lovelady is somehow on the lineup. Still looking through here. AJ Minter. All right, here are an interesting pair of names. AJ Minter and Daniel Nunez. Minter was brought in last year from the Braves, a nice left-hander, and he went down. I think he had a shoulder injury, maybe an elbow injury. Whatever it was, it kept him out for the remainder of the year. The Mets can't afford to lose a guy like Minter again. He's going to be such a huge piece of this bullpen. Last year, Stanek was able to fill his spot as that main lefty late in games. This year, Minter's going to have to be the guy. 8th inning, Mendy needs a lefty to get a couple outs. Minter is the guy. And then Daniel Nunez didn't have it last year, but in 24, he was awesome. I know he struggled with injuries a little bit, but he had such a good season that I'm hoping he can tap back into some of that here in 2026. Let's keep going down the list. Brooks Raley, he's another one. He was hurt for a lot of last year. Another lefty that Mendy can trust late in games. Him and Minter are going to be the left-handed duo out of the pen, the back end of that bullpen. Brandon Sproat, right now he's projected to be a starter, but when the Mets get their full complement of starters back, I'm talking Nolan McLean, Christian Scott, Jonah Tong, pair that with Senga, Peterson, Manaya, I can see Sproat being a guy that gets shifted to the bullpen. He's got a huge arm. He's sitting up around 100 miles an hour on his fastball. You shift him to the bullpen. Maybe he's your closer. Maybe he's a back end of the bullpen kind of guy. But if you give him an inning, say, let it eat, I think Brandon Sproat could be a real valuable piece out of the pen. Austin Warren probably won't do much, and I already talked about Luke Weaver and Devin Williams. For the most part, the Mets bullpen, it's not really exciting you. I will add, though, after reading those names off a list, I am more excited about it than when I thought. I thought it was really skimpier than that. It's still not good, and there's stuff and there's moves that could be made, but it's probably serviceable, especially, like I said, if the Mets are going to lean on their offense. And getting back to the offense, and specifically the Luis Robert trade, I'm so happy with it. All the Mets had to give up was Luis Angel Acuna and Truman Pauly. For Acuna, he didn't really have a role on this team. He didn't really have a future with the New York Mets. There was an influx of infield prospects coming up for the Mets. Right now, you have Brett Beatty, Ronnie Mauricio, and Mark Vientos. In the system, you have guys like Jet Williams and Mitch Voigt. There is just a ton of infielders. It's a logjam right now. And outside of speed, maybe a little bit of defense, Acuna's hitting doesn't jump off the charts. It doesn't, and that's okay. And you have to give to get, so I'm happy with what David Stearns did. Overall, for the Mets, it's been a real successful last week. Luis Robert and Bo Bichette are both going to be big-time producers for the Mets, and as the Mets continue to make moves, Stearns continues to shake and bake, I'm getting excited as we get into spring training here. Now let me transition to what I want to talk about with the New York Yankees. Cody Bellinger is back in pinstripes. What a pickup. Brian Cashman played the waiting game. He bet on Boris caving in, and that's exactly what happened. The terms of the contract are as follows. 5 years, $162 million, full no-trade clause, opt-outs after the second and third years. That works out to a 32.4 AAV. It keeps Judge as the highest paid New York Yankee, and I love it. I mean, you couldn't pay that much for Cody Bellinger, who at the end of this deal, I think he's 31 right now, so 5 years down the line, he'll be 36, he'll be teetering out, it'll be the end of his career. He might not give you as much production, but it's so much better than signing him to a 7-year deal and whatever amount of money that Scott Boras was asking. I'm convinced that Boras just writes a number down on paper and says, yeah, that'll do, even though 99.9% of the time, it is way out of the question. I mean, whatever they were asking for initially was just a ridiculous amount. So Bellinger's nice, but overall for the Yankees, they haven't done enough. Cashman planned out his whole offseason, so Cody Bellinger would be the first domino to fall, and then he'd just go on a rampage of signing everyone else after that. Now we sit here on January the 21st. The market is so skim, and the Yankees just signed Cody Bellinger. They've done nothing else. All right, you signed Trent Grisham. Ahmed Rosario is back. Like, you're not making major moves. Everything is on the margins, and right now the Yankees, they have the funds to do whatever they want, but the players and the talent isn't available for them to sign. All right, that's the negative part. The Yankees haven't done enough. They're going to run it back. It puts so much pressure now on Spencer Jones and Jason Dominguez because one of them is going to have to play center field. If Ben Rice and Austin Wells can't figure it out, I'm confident Rice is going to be good. But if Austin Wells doesn't have it and Rice has to move to catcher, Cody Bellinger is going to be shifting from left field to first base. And that leaves your outfield as Aaron Judge, who is one throw away from really screwing up his elbow. Spencer Jones and Jason Dominguez in center and left field. I don't know which will play which position, but those are the two guys that are manning the other two outfield spots. So that's concerning. The young guys are playing and having to actually contribute to the team now. However, I will say that I feel like I've been hearing about these names since I was in middle school. I mean, Jason Dominguez and Spencer Jones have been in the minor leagues forever. Jones is already 25 years old, and he's finally making his MLB debut. I think he made it last year, but it's about time, man. And the Yankees have this culture of fostering prospects and really nurturing them until they're ready, 100% ready to go in the major leagues. And you look at a guy like Aaron Judge, who didn't come out till what? He was 27 years old or so, and he dominated immediately when he came into the league. But he's too old. I feel like he hasn't been in the league for that long, and he's already reaching the climax of his career. Now let's get to some of the positive things. And honestly, I'm on the side where the Yankees haven't done enough. They're not going to be as good. I mean, they barely made the playoffs last year, and now they're deciding to run it back. It's not good enough. But I will play devil's advocate and give you the positive side of the equation. The Yankees pitching come July is going to be awesome. You got Garrett Cole coming back. Max Fried looked awesome in his first year in pinstripes. Carlos Rodon took a real step forward in 2025. It seemed like he changed his mindset a lot. Him and Aaron Boone have a better connection now. I would look for Carlos Rodon to break out in a big way this year. Then you have Cam Schlittler and Ryan Weathers as the fourth and fifth men. Schlitt broke onto the scene in the 2025 playoffs. I mean, he had a generational run carrying the Yankees on the mound. I think he was their best player throughout that short-lived playoff appearance. I mean, that game 3 against the Red Sox, he pitched well against the Blue Jays. He did it all for the Yanks. And then Ryan Weathers, one of the newer Yankees, they just made a trade with the Miami Marlins. I think Weathers has a chance to be really good. I mean, he's a guy that struggled with injuries throughout his entire career. He's got a high 3 ERA across, 4 or 5 seasons in the bigs. But in his role, which is just anchoring the back of this rotation, being that fifth guy, turning it over from Schlitt to Cole, I think he can do the job. And if he gets hurt, you have Luis Gil to step in. And speaking of Luis Gil, my idea is to shift Gil to the bullpen. I mean, Gil in 24, his rookie year, had such high velo. He was averaging 98, 99, 100 miles an hour. But in 25, I know he was riddled with injuries, but it fell off a cliff. I mean, he was sitting 93, 94. The way you get that velocity back is A, having a whole offseason to rest your shoulder, but B, giving him 1 inning, 2 innings, say, go get it. Throw as hard as you can. Don't hold anything back, because even when he was a starting pitcher, everything took so much effort. He would throw so many pitches just to get through 5 innings. I think if he could really reach back and throw the ball the way he should be for an inning or two, the Yankees will be better off. And considering that Devin Williams is gone, I know we didn't do much for you, but he was solid when he came in the 7th or 8th innings. Luke Weaver's also gone. Again, he didn't have the best 2025, but he was competent for the Yankees. It's going to be David Bednar and Luis Gil if my plan goes to work. You've got guys like Paul Blackburn, who you traded for at the deadline, Camilo Duvall, Fernando Cruz is in Aaron Boone's circle of trust, Tim Hill, maybe he can bounce back a little bit. Other than that, though, maybe Clark Schmidt and Will Warren, switch to the pen. Ryan Yarborough is going to play a huge part in the Yankees bullpen. He's a long-distance guy who can make a spot start here or there. And for the first part of the season, because Garrett Cole won't be ready to go opening day, and Carlos Rodon will also miss time. Expect Will Warren and Clark Schmidt to make a couple starts each. Expect Luis Hill to make a spot start. Expect Ryan Yarbrough to get the ball one day every once in a while. That's what you're going to have to do. You're really going to have to finagle your rotation so you can just piece by piece, day by day, get to June 1st, which is the estimated return date for Garrett Cole. And then after that, that's when your season can really kick into gear and you could get things going. But right now, the Yankees aren't good enough. They've still got a bunch of moves to be made, but the problem is there's not enough out there. Now is the time for the Yanks to stack the deck. Garrett Cole isn't getting any younger. Aaron Judge isn't getting any younger. And in Garrett Cole's case, he's coming off a major injury. I mean, Max Fried isn't old, but he's getting up there. Stack the deck and go win it now. You were in the World Series 2 years ago. You were in the playoffs. You won the Wild Card Series last year. I know you had an embarrassing showing in the divisional series, but you were there. The talent is there. Go fill the areas of need. If the Yankees do that, and I get probably no one is getting past the Dodgers now that they have Kyle Tucker, now that they have Edwin Diaz, their two biggest positions of need entering the offseason, outfield and closer. But if you get to the World Series, there's always a chance. Let me get into some of my Dodger thoughts. I mean, I'm going with the big three today. Mets, Yankees, Dodgers, three of the biggest markets in all of sports. The Dodgers are breaking baseball, but they're doing it because they can, and they're the only team that can. They have access to such special opportunities. They have the Guggenheim partners who are financing all their moves. They have an exemption with Sportsnet LA that allows them to keep all the revenue from the TV channel. They have all of Japan to market to, a country that lives and breathes the sport of baseball. They have Shohei Ohtani, everything out there. I mean, his contract is paid. Yamamoto's contract is being paid upfront, but there are some deferrals in the Kyle Tucker deal. If baseball wasn't heading to a lockout before this offseason, they sure are now, because the Dodgers won't stop. And honestly, how can you blame them? If you have the access to this funding, if you have the access to this money, why wouldn't you spend it? Why wouldn't you take advantage of what's out there for you? And if you're the players, you're going to take top dollar. So I want to be mad at someone here, but I can't really be mad at anyone because everyone is just doing their job. It sucks. You can hate the Dodgers, and that's who I'll be mad at, the Dodgers, because they're breaking the sport. But at the end of the day, they're just doing what they have to do to make their franchise as successful as possible. And it sucks because we're not going to get baseball until at least May next year, because I have no idea what the solution is for the MLB. The players will never agree to a salary cap. The owners are going to be pushing for that, but it'll never get passed. There's nothing you can do that's going to stop the Dodgers from spending the way they are now. MLB is heading for a lockout, and all we can do is just accept it. All right, that's going to do it for this episode. If you enjoyed, please consider subscribing, following, liking, sharing it with a friend. I really appreciate all the support. Also, go check out my social media accounts. They're linked in the description below. My Instagram, my TikTok, my YouTube shorts. We're posting a lot over there, so make sure you go check it out. Also, if you want to leave a voicemail to the Sports Pod, you can do so by dialing the number 848-305-8073. Again, that's 848-305-8073. And when I do live streams, which I promote over on my Instagram, you can actually call in live at that same number. You can go back and forth with me if I'm with a guest that day. It's a lot of fun. It's one of my favorite features that I've incorporated. But for now, make sure you keep it locked with the Sports Pod.